Waitress gave food to 2 orphans. 17 years later, a luxury car shows up at her door. A black Cadillac pulls up in front of Sarah Mitchell's modest duplex on Elm Street. The engine purrs to a stop. Through her faded curtains, Sarah watches a man in an expensive tailored suit step out. His watch catches the sunlight, probably worth more than she makes in a year. Her heart pounds against her ribs. Who could this be? Sarah wipes flour-stained hands on her worn apron. At 52, she's still pulling double shifts, waitressing at Murphy's Diner by day, cleaning offices by night. Men like this don't visit her neighborhood, ever. The stranger approaches her front door with confident strides. Sarah's mind races through possibilities. Bill collector, lawyer, wrong address. She has no idea that this moment, this unexpected visitor, will finally close a chapter that began 17 years ago, with 2 hungry children and a choice that cost her everything she had. What happens next will change everything. The doorbell echoes through Sarah's cramped apartment. She glances at her reflection in the hallway mirror, frizzy hair escaping from a ponytail, mascara smudged from the morning rush. Her uniform still smells like bacon grease and coffee. Through the peephole she sees him clearly now, mid-30s maybe. Expensive leather briefcase, the kind of polished confidence that comes with money and power. Sarah opens the door just a crack, keeping the chain latch secure. "Can I help you?" "Ms. Sarah Mitchell." His voice is smooth, educated. "My name is David Chen. I'm an attorney from Chen, Morrison & Associates." Her stomach drops. Attorneys mean trouble. Always. "I'm sorry, but if this is about debt collection, I'm making payments on everything. I have documentation." "Ma'am, this isn't about debt." David's expression softens. "May I come in? What I have to discuss?" It's rather extraordinary. Sarah hesitates. Her living room is barely 12 by 10 feet. Thrift store furniture, patched sofa cushions, bills stacked on the coffee table. Everything about her life screams struggle. "I suppose," she says, reluctantly unhooking the chain. David steps inside and the contrast is jarring. His Italian leather shoes on her threadbare carpet, his Armani suit against her Dollar General curtains, 2 worlds colliding. "Ms. Mitchell, do you remember working at Miller's Diner back in 2006? Sarah's breath catches. Miller's Diner. The place where her life took a nosedive, where she made the decision that cost her everything but her dignity. "Why would you ask about that?" David sets his briefcase on her table, careful not to disturb the pile of overdue notices. "Because what happened there 17 years ago has brought me to your door today." Sarah feels time folding in on itself. The memories she's tried to bury suddenly surface. 2 small faces pressed against cold glass, empty stomachs and desperate eyes. But she doesn't know yet how that single moment of compassion set in motion events that would reach across nearly 2 decades. How those children grew up remembering, how they never stopped searching. Springfield, Ohio, March 2006. Sarah's hands shake as she counts the crumpled bills in her apron pocket for the 3rd time. $18.47. The electricity bill is due tomorrow, $63. Rent is in 5 days, $450. The math never works, no matter how many times she recalculates. The late March wind cuts through the diner's windows like a knife. Sarah pulls her cardigan tighter as she refills the sugar dispensers. Miller's Diner at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday is practically empty. Just old Mr. Peterson nursing his coffee and reading yesterday's newspaper. That's when she notices them. 2 boys outside, pressed against the window like moths drawn to warm light. The older one, maybe 8 or 9, holds his little brother's hand protectively. Their clothes hang loose on thin frames, hand-me-downs that have seen too many owners. No coats despite the bitter wind. Sarah has seen hungry children before. Was one herself 25 years ago. She recognizes the way they move. Careful, apologetic, trying to take up as little space as possible. The way they look at food like it's something magical and unreachable. The younger boy points at a piece of chocolate cake in the display case. His brother gently pulls his hand down, shaking his head. Even through the glass, Sarah can see the older boy's lips moving. "We can't afford it, Jake." Her heart clenches. She knows that conversation. Had it 1,000 times with her own empty stomach when she was their age. Sarah glances at Ron Stevens, the diner owner, counting register receipts in the back booth. He's already complained twice today about loitering, code for poor people making his establishment look bad. But these aren't loiterers. These are children whose hollow cheeks tell stories of missed meals, whose eyes hold an old sadness that no child should carry. Sarah doesn't know their names yet, doesn't know their brothers from the county children's home, doesn't know that their parents died in a car accident 6 months ago, leaving them with no one. What she does know is hunger, and she can't stand by and watch. Sarah pushes through the diner's front door, the bell chiming overhead. The boys immediately step back, startled. "Hey there," she says gently, crouching to their eye level. "You boys look cold." The older brother shifts protectively in front of the younger one. "We're not causing trouble, ma'am. We were just looking." "I can see that." Sarah studies their faces, the older boy's defensive pride, the little one's innocent curiosity. "I'm Sarah. What are your names?" "I'm Tommy," the older boy says reluctantly. "This is my brother Jake." Jake peeks out from behind Tommy, probably 5 years old with eyes too big for his gaunt face. His stomach growls audibly, and he presses his hands against it, embarrassed. "When's the last time you boys ate?" Sarah asks. Tommy's jaw tightens. "We're fine." But fine is a lie Sarah recognizes. She wore it like armor at their age when pride was all she had left. "Well, I was just about to take my break," she says, standing up, "and I always eat too much on my breaks. Hate to waste food. You wouldn't help me out by sharing some pancakes, would you?" Jake's eyes light up, but Tommy shakes his head firmly. "We don't have money." "Did I ask for money?" The question hangs in the cold air. Tommy searches Sarah's face, looking for the catch. There's always a catch when adults offer help. He's learned that the hard way. But Sarah's eyes hold something different, something warm and honest that Tommy hasn't seen in months. "Come on," she says, opening the diner door wider. It's freezing out here. As they step inside, warmth wrapping around them like a blanket, Tommy whispers to Jake, "Just this once, okay?" Then we leave. Sarah leads them to a corner booth, away from prying eyes. As she heads to place their order, she doesn't notice Ron Stevens looking up from his receipts with a frown. She has no idea that this moment, this simple act of human kindness, will set in motion events that span decades. That these two hungry boys will carry her compassion with them far longer than she could ever imagine. But first, there's a price to be paid, and Sarah is about to discover exactly what her kindness will cost. Sarah sets down 2 plates of steaming pancakes, scrambled eggs and crispy bacon in front of Tommy and Jake. The little boy's eyes widen like he's seeing magic. Tommy tries to maintain composure, but his hands tremble as he picks up his fork. "Go ahead," Sarah encourages. It's still hot. Jake digs in immediately, syrup dripping down his chin. Tommy eats with forced restraint, too much dignity to wolf down food, even though every fiber of his being screams for nourishment. Sarah pours them tall glasses of orange juice and slides into the booth across from them. "So where do you boys live?" Tommy stops chewing. The question every foster kid dreads. "Around," he says carefully. Before Sarah can probe further, heavy footsteps approach their table. Ron Stevens looms over them, his face red with irritation. "Sarah, what the hell is this?" The boys freeze, forks halfway to their mouths. Jake shrinks back against the vinyl seat. "This is my lunch break, Ron." Sarah keeps her voice steady, but her pulse quickens. "Your lunch break doesn't include feeding every stray kid who wanders in here." Ron's voice carries across the nearly empty diner. Mr. Peterson looks up from his newspaper with interest. Tommy slowly puts down his fork. "We should go." "No," Sarah says firmly. "You should finish your food." Ron crosses his arms. "Who's paying for this, Sarah? Because I know you didn't ring it up." The question hangs heavy in the air. Sarah glances at the boys. Tommy's face burning with shame, Jake confused and scared. This is exactly what she feared would happen. If this story is touching you, it's because you recognize that moment when doing right feels impossible, but doing nothing feels worse. "I am," Sarah says, reaching for her apron pocket where $18.47 waits, money that was supposed to cover her electricity bill. "You are?" Ron laughs, but there's no humor in it. "And with what money? Your paycheck barely covers your own expenses." Sarah counts out the bills slowly, deliberately. Each dollar feels like a small act of rebellion against a world that teaches us to look the other way when children go hungry. But as she stacks the money on the table, she realizes something that makes her stomach drop. The pancakes, eggs, bacon, and juice. It's going to cost more than she has. Sarah stares at the money in her hands. $18.47. She quickly calculates. 2 full breakfast plates, 2 large orange juices. At Miller's prices, she's looking at $24.50, maybe $26 with tax. She's $8 short. Ron taps his foot impatiently. "Well, I'm waiting." Tommy notices Sarah's hesitation. His street-smart instincts kick in, the same survival skills that have kept him and Jake alive in the system. He recognizes the look of someone doing math that doesn't add up. "Ma'am," Tommy says quietly, "we can leave some food. We don't need all of it." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. A child offering to eat less so she won't get in trouble. The injustice of it ignites something fierce in her chest. "You'll eat every bite," she tells Tommy, then looks up at Ron. "Ring up the total." "All of it." Ron walks to the register with deliberate slowness, each keystroke echoing through the tense diner. 2 house specials, 2 large OJs. $25.78. Sarah's deficit stares her in the face. $7.31 she doesn't have. Money that might as well be $1 million in her world. "Problem, Sarah?" Ron's voice drips with satisfaction. He's trapped her, and they both know it. Jake tugs on Tommy's sleeve. "Tommy, I'm full, really full." But Tommy sees through his little brother's lie. Jake is still hungry. His eyes keep darting to the remaining pancakes. He's just trying to help, the way they've learned to help each other survive. Sarah makes a decision that will change everything. She places her $18.47 on the counter. "Take this now. I'll cover the rest from my next paycheck." Ron's face darkens. "That's not how this works, Sarah. Payment in full or those kids don't eat." The diner falls silent, except for the hum of the coffee machine. Mr. Peterson has abandoned all pretense of reading his paper. Even the kitchen has gone quiet. "Then take it out of my wages," Sarah says, her voice steady despite her racing heart. Ron leans across the counter, his voice low and dangerous. "Your wages? Sarah, you've just bought yourself a one-way ticket out of this job." The trap has sprung. Sarah's kindness has backed her into a corner where every choice leads to loss, but she's about to discover that some prices are worth paying and some battles are worth fighting. Ron's declaration echoes through the diner like a gunshot. "You're fired, Sarah. Pack your things and get out." The words hit harder than Sarah expected. 3 years of double shifts, covering for lazy co-workers, enduring Ron's constant criticism, all ending because she chose to feed 2 hungry children. Tommy shoots up from the booth, his chair scraping against the floor. "No, this is our fault." His young voice cracks with desperation. "Please don't fire her because of us." Jake starts crying, big tears rolling down his cheeks as he looks between Sarah and the angry man. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry." Sarah's heart breaks watching these children blame themselves for adult cruelty. She kneels beside Jake, gently wiping his tears. "Listen to me, sweetheart. You did absolutely nothing wrong. Nothing. Do you hear me?" "But the lady lost her job," Jake whispers. "The lady made a choice," Sarah says firmly, loud enough for the entire diner to hear. "And I'd make it again." Mr. Peterson suddenly stands up from his corner booth. His weathered hands shake slightly as he reaches for his wallet. "How much are they short, Ron?" Ron waves him off dismissively. "Stay out of this, old man. This is between me and my former employee." $7.31, Sarah says, standing up. "But Mr. Peterson, you don't have to—" "Like hell I don't." The elderly man slams a $20 bill on the counter. "There, problem solved." Ron stares at the money, his face cycling through confusion, anger, and something that might be shame. The diner has become a battleground, and he's losing the moral war. "This isn't about the money anymore," Ron says through gritted teeth. It's about respect, following rules. Sarah violated company policy. Company policy? Mr. Peterson's voice rises with indignation. What policy says you can't have compassion? What rule book says children should go hungry while food sits getting cold? Other patrons begin murmuring agreement. The lunch crowd has grown during the confrontation, and they've heard everything. Sarah realizes she has unexpected allies, people who recognize injustice when they see it. Tommy grabs Sarah's hand. Come on, Jake, we're leaving. No, Sarah says firmly, you're going to finish every bite of that food. That's what it cost me, and I won't see it wasted. She guides the boys back to their booth, her head held high despite everything crumbling around her. Ron can fire her, humiliate her, destroy her livelihood, but he can't steal this moment from two children who need to know they matter. As Tommy and Jake slowly return to their plates, Sarah whispers words that will echo in their hearts for 17 years. Never apologize for needing help. Never be ashamed of being hungry. You are worth more than money, more than jobs, more than any adult's convenience. She has no idea these words will become their North Star. Present day, Sarah's living room. David Chen opens his leather briefcase with precise movements, each action deliberate and practiced. Sarah sits across from him on her worn sofa, her mind still reeling from the mention of Miller's diner. You remember them, David observes, watching her face. Tommy and Jake. Of course I remember. Sarah's voice is barely above a whisper. You don't forget children like that. The way they looked at food like it was precious. David nods slowly. They were indeed precious, more than anyone realized at the time. He pulls out a thick manila folder, but doesn't open it yet. Instead, he studies Sarah with the calculating gaze of someone accustomed to reading people, to understanding their motivations and fears. Ms. Mitchell, after you were terminated from Miller's diner, do you know what happened to those boys? Sarah shakes her head. The question has haunted her for years. I tried to find out. Called social services, but they wouldn't tell me anything. Privacy laws, they said. I wasn't family. They went back to Riverside Children's Home, David explains. Tommy was 9, Jake was 6. They'd been there for 8 months already after their parents died in a car accident. Sarah's heart clenches. Orphans. She'd fed orphans and lost her job for it. The night they returned to the home, Tommy told every kid there about the waitress who chose them over her paycheck, who said they were worth more than money. David's professional demeanor softens slightly. It became legendary among the children, the story of the woman who cared. Sarah wipes away a tear she didn't realize had fallen. They were just so thin, so scared. Tommy kept a journal from age 10 onward. Every entry for years mentioned you. Not by name initially. He called you the Pancake Lady. But he described everything. Your kindness, your words, how you made them feel human when the world treated them as burdens. David finally opens the folder, revealing newspaper clippings, photographs, and official documents. The top clipping shows a young man in a graduation cap and gown, holding a diploma high in the air. Tommy Morrison, David says, pointing to the photo. Graduated valedictorian from Stanford University 2019, full scholarship. Sarah's eyes widen. The thin boy from her memory, now a confident young man with the same determined eyes she remembered. And Jake, she asks. David flips to another photo, a man in surgical scrubs, smiling beside a hospital bed where a small child recovers from surgery. Dr. Jake Morrison, pediatric cardiac surgeon at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, also full scholarship through medical school. Sarah stares at the photos, trying to reconcile these successful young men with the hungry children she once knew. How did they, from the children's home to this? Your words, Ms. Mitchell, never apologize for needing help. Tommy applied that philosophy to seeking mentorship, scholarships, opportunities. He refused to accept that being poor meant being powerless. David leans forward, his voice taking on an almost reverent tone. But here's what you need to understand, Sarah. They never stopped looking for you. David reaches deeper into his folder and pulls out a bound document with Morrison Enterprises emblazoned on the cover. Sarah recognizes the name from Business News, the tech company that's been making headlines for its innovative software and philanthropic initiatives. Tommy Morrison isn't just successful, Ms. Mitchell. He's the founder and CEO of Morrison Enterprises. The company went public 3 years ago. Current valuation, $3.2 billion. Sarah's coffee cup slips from her fingers, landing with a soft thud on her carpet. She stares at David, processing words that seem impossible. The little boy, the one who counted change for pancakes, is a billionaire. A billionaire who has spent the last decade searching for the woman who taught him his worth. David pulls out a private investigator's report, thick with photocopied documents and surveillance photos. Sarah Mitchell, age 35 in 2006, worked at Miller's Diner until March 15, 2006, terminated for violation of company policy. The clinical language makes her termination sound almost noble. Tommy hired 3 different investigation firms over the years. The challenge was that you've moved 6 times since then, always staying in similar economic circumstances. You became invisible to traditional search methods. Sarah thinks about her life since Miller's, a series of minimum wage jobs, tiny apartments, constant financial stress. Invisible indeed. How did you finally find me? David smiles. Jake became the key. As a doctor, he has access to medical databases. They cross-referenced Sarah Mitchell's in Ohio with employment records, medical visits, utility connections, old-fashioned detective work combined with modern data analysis. He shows her a timeline, her movements over 17 years mapped out with disturbing precision. Every job, every address, every small struggle documented by people she'd never met. Why? Sarah asks. Why spend so much money and effort finding one waitress? David's expression grows serious. Because Tommy Morrison built his entire business philosophy around the values you demonstrated that day. Every Morrison Enterprises initiative stems from one core principle. Every person has inherent worth that transcends their economic circumstances. He flips to a company mission statement, and Sarah sees her own words reflected back at her in corporate language. Morrison Enterprises has donated $847 million to children's charities worldwide. They've funded 23,000 college scholarships for foster children. Tommy personally mentors 200 kids, aging out of the system every year. Sarah's head spins with the numbers, but David isn't finished. 3 months ago, Tommy told his board of directors that he wouldn't be satisfied until he could personally thank the woman who started it all. He said, "I built a fortune on the foundation of her kindness. It's time to share that fortune with her." The room falls silent. Sarah stares at the documents, at photos of charity events and scholarship ceremonies, at a business empire built on the memory of pancakes shared with strangers. The world isn't what we thought it was. David produces a worn composition notebook, its pages yellowed with age. Tommy kept this journal throughout high school. He gave me permission to share entries with you. Sarah takes the notebook with trembling hands. The cover is marked Thomas Morrison, private, in adolescent handwriting. Page 47, David suggests gently. Sarah flips through pages of teenage thoughts until she finds the entry dated March 15, 2013, 7 years ago today. 7 years ago, a woman I didn't even know chose Jake and me over her own security. Mrs. Patterson at the home says people don't usually sacrifice for strangers, especially not poor kids. But the pancake lady did. She looked at us and saw something worth saving. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. When adults look at foster kids, they usually see problems, mouths to feed, behavioral issues, damaged goods. But she saw hungry children who deserved food. That's it. Simple human dignity. I want to build something that sees people the way she saw us, not as burdens or statistics, but as humans with potential. Sarah wipes her eyes. He was only 16 when he wrote this. Turn to page 91, David says quietly. The entry is dated during Tommy's senior year of high school. Got into Stanford today, full ride. Jake and I celebrated by going to a diner, not Miller's. That place closed years ago. We ordered pancakes and orange juice just like that day. The waitress was nice, but she wasn't our waitress. I tipped her $50 anyway. She looked confused, but I told her, Someone once helped me when I needed it most. This is me paying it forward. Someday I'm going to find the woman who saved us. I'm going to thank her properly, and I'm going to make sure no other kid goes hungry while adults count pennies. David points to another document, Morrison Enterprises' first business plan from Tommy's college years. The executive summary reads, "A technology company committed to proving that profit and compassion can coexist, inspired by the revolutionary idea that every human being deserves dignity regardless of their economic status." He built a fortune on your philosophy, Sarah. Every major corporate decision references that day at Miller's Diner. His board meetings begin with a moment of reflection on the pancake principle, the idea that how we treat society's most vulnerable reveals our true character. Sarah stares at the business documents, overwhelmed. They were hungry children. Exactly. You saw what everyone else missed. Tommy says that's the difference between ordinary kindness and transformational kindness. You didn't help them despite their circumstances. You helped them because their circumstances demanded it. David closes the folder carefully. Ms. Mitchell, Tommy and Jake Morrison credit you with teaching them that their worth wasn't determined by their bank account, their family status, or society's expectations. They've spent 17 years proving that lesson to themselves and the world. He pauses, studying her face. Now they'd like to prove it to you. David stands up and walks to Sarah's small window, looking out at the neighborhood where she's lived for 3 years. Run-down houses with peeling paint, cars that have seen better decades, yards where hope struggles against poverty. Tommy told me something interesting last week, he says, still facing the window. He said, I need to find out if she's still the same person. If success would have changed her the way it changes most people. Sarah frowns. What do you mean? David turns back to face her. He wanted to test whether your kindness was situational, born from shared struggle, or universal. Whether you'd still choose compassion if you had other options. I don't understand. 3 months ago, Tommy Morrison walked into Murphy's Diner at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, dressed in work clothes and a baseball cap. He ordered coffee and watched you work. Sarah's breath catches. Murphy's Diner, her current job. Someone was watching me? He sat in the corner booth for 2 hours, watched you slip extra fries to a customer who looked tired, saw you give a free refill to a woman counting change, noticed how you talked to the homeless man who comes in every Thursday, not with pity but with genuine respect. Sarah remembers that Tuesday, a regular day full of small interactions she thought no one noticed. Then he watched you do something that sealed his decision. David pulls out his phone and shows her a photograph, Sarah handing a to-go bag to a teenage girl outside the diner's back door. That's Emma, Sarah says softly. She's 17, living in her car, aged out of foster care with nowhere to go. Tommy saw you give her food you'd paid for yourself, just like you did for him and Jake 17 years ago. Different faces, same heart. Sarah stares at the photo, realizing she'd been unknowingly auditioned by the child she once helped. That's when he knew, David continues. Success hadn't corrupted you, money problems hadn't made you bitter. You were still the same woman who chose hungry children over job security. David sits back down, his voice growing intense. But here's what troubled Tommy. He's built an empire worth billions, created thousands of jobs, donated hundreds of millions to charity. Yet you, the person who inspired it all, are still struggling financially. The accusation hangs in the air. Sarah feels defensive, ashamed, confused. Ms. Mitchell, Tommy believes the world has failed you. You taught him that every person has inherent worth, but society continues treating you as if you don't. You've worked minimum wage jobs for 17 years, while the philosophy you demonstrated has generated billions in wealth. David leans forward. He thinks that's morally unacceptable. Sarah's face flushes. I don't want charity, I work for what I have. It's not charity, David says firmly. Tommy calls it economic justice. You invested in his future when no one else would. Now that investment is paying dividends. He pulls out a legal document. Thomas Morrison hereby establishes the Sarah Mitchell Foundation, dedicated to supporting individuals who demonstrate extraordinary compassion despite personal hardship. Initial endowment, $50 million. Sarah stares at the papers, overwhelmed. I can't. This is too much. The foundation isn't for you to run, David clarifies. It's named after you, inspired by you, but managed by professionals. Your role is simple. Keep being the person you've always been. Keep seeing worth where others see problems. He pauses, studying her reaction. The question is, will you let Tommy Morrison repay a debt that's been accumulating interest for 17 years? David reaches into his briefcase one final time and produces an envelope sealed with wax, old-fashioned, formal, important. Before we discuss the foundation, Tommy asked me to give you this personally. Sarah takes the envelope with hands that won't stop shaking. Her name is written across the front in careful handwriting, not Tommy's childish scrawl from memory, but the confident script of a man who signed billion-dollar contracts. He wrote this letter 5 years ago, David explains. Updated it every year as they got closer to finding you. He wanted his words to be perfect. Sarah breaks the seal and unfolds pages of cream-colored paper. The letterhead reads, Personal Correspondence, Thomas Morrison. Dear Sarah, I hope I can call you that. By the time you read this, you'll know that the hungry boy you fed 17 years ago became someone the world considers successful. But I need you to understand something the newspaper articles don't mention. Every achievement in my life traces back to March 15th, 2006. Not because you gave me food, though Jake and I were genuinely hungry that day, but because you gave me something more valuable. You proved that I mattered to a stranger. That my existence had worth beyond what I could produce or pay for. I've spent 17 years trying to live up to the investment you made in me. Every scholarship I've funded, every charity I've supported, every business decision I've made has been guided by one question. What would Sarah do? You taught me that dignity isn't earned, it's inherent. That compassion isn't weakness, it's strength. That sacrificing for others isn't foolish, it's revolutionary. But here's what haunts me, Sarah. While I've built wealth using your principles, you've continued struggling financially. The woman who taught a billionaire about human worth is still working double shifts at age 52. The teacher is being ignored while the student gets celebrated. This isn't just ironic, it's wrong. Jake and I have discussed this countless times. How do we honor someone who changed our lives without insulting their independence? How do we share our success without implying you need saving? The answer came to me last year during a board meeting. Someone suggested we were too generous with our charitable giving, that we should focus on shareholder profits. I thought about you in that moment, how you risked your livelihood for children you'd never met. I realized you didn't save us despite the cost. You saved us because the cost proved your commitment, so I'm not offering you charity, Sarah. I'm offering you partnership. Sarah looks up at David, tears blurring her vision. Partnership? Keep reading, he says gently. I want you to become the moral compass of Morrison Enterprises, not as an employee but as a founding partner, your name alongside mine on every major decision. The Sarah Mitchell Foundation is just the beginning. I'm proposing we establish the largest privately funded anti-hunger initiative in American history, not run by politicians or bureaucrats, but by someone who understands hunger personally. You wouldn't just be helping people, Sarah. You'd be leading the effort to prove that your values can transform the world. The letter continues for 2 more pages, outlining specific programs, budgets, and implementation strategies. By the end, Sarah realizes she's holding the blueprint for a humanitarian empire. He wants me to run this, she whispers. He wants you to guide it, David clarifies. The way you guided him. David produces a set of keys from his briefcase, not a single key, but an ornate key ring with multiple keys of different sizes and shapes. Each one bears a small engraved tag. These represent the tangible aspects of Tommy's proposal, he explains, setting them on the coffee table between them. Sarah picks up the key ring, reading the tags through her tears. Headquarters office. Personal residence. Foundation vehicles. Emergency fund access. The headquarters building is downtown, David explains. 15,000 square feet, fully staffed, waiting for your leadership. Tommy purchased it 6 months ago in anticipation of finding you. He shows her photographs on his tablet. A gleaming building with the Sarah Mitchell Foundation already etched in marble above the entrance. The lobby features a bronze plaque with the inscription, "Dedicated to the principle that every person's worth transcends their circumstances." The personal residence key opens a house in Riverside Heights, the neighborhood where you grew up. Tommy researched your background extensively. 3 bedrooms, full kitchen, garden space, mortgage-free, utilities covered by the foundation's operating budget. Sarah stares at photos of a modest but beautiful home. Nothing ostentatious, but solid, warm, dignified. A place where she could host Sunday dinners, have friends over, live without counting every penny. "I can't accept a house," she protests weakly. "You're not accepting charity," David counters. "You're accepting working conditions appropriate for someone running a $50 million foundation." Would you expect a CEO to live in poverty while managing humanitarian programs? The logic is sound, but Sarah's lifetime of struggle makes accepting help feel wrong, even when she's earned it. David shows her the foundation's organizational chart. 12 full-time employees already hired. Accountants, program coordinators, field representatives. They've been developing hunger relief programs for 8 months, waiting for you to provide final approval and direction. Sarah sees her name at the top of the chart. Executive Director and Founding Partner. Below her, experienced professionals with impressive credentials, all working toward goals she believed in. Tommy also insisted on this, David says, producing a bank statement. "Personal account established in your name, initial deposit $500,000. Sarah drops the papers. "That's impossible. That's more money than I've made in my entire life." "It's less than Tommy makes in a week," David says matter-of-factly. "And it's not a gift, it's back pay. 17 years of consulting fees for the ethical guidance that built Morrison Enterprises." He shows her the calculation. Annual consultation value for moral framework development, $29,211.76. Compounded annually at standard business rates, $409,99.92. The mathematical precision makes Tommy's generosity feel like a business transaction, which somehow makes it easier for Sarah to accept. "There's one final element," David says, pulling out a leather portfolio. "Tommy and Jake want to meet with you, not as donor and recipient, but as partners planning the future." Inside the portfolio is an itinerary for the following week. Morrison Enterprises Board Meeting, Special Session. Topic, Formalizing the Sarah Mitchell Partnership. Location, Company Headquarters. Duration, 3 days. Sarah realizes she's looking at her transformation from waitress to humanitarian leader, documented and scheduled like any other business transition. "The boys you fed are now men who want to change the world," David says, "but they need the woman who taught them how." 1 week later, Morrison Enterprises headquarters, Columbus, Ohio. Sarah steps out of a black town car in front of a gleaming 30-story building. The Morrison Enterprises logo, a stylized tree with deep roots and spreading branches, dominates the facade. She's wearing a new navy blue suit, courtesy of the foundation's professional wardrobe budget, and carrying a briefcase containing her first official foundation proposals. The contrast to her life 7 days ago feels surreal. In the marble lobby, a young receptionist greets her with obvious excitement. "Ms. Mitchell, Mr. Morrison is waiting for you in the executive conference room. 28th floor." The elevator ride feels endless. Sarah's stomach churns with nervous energy. She's about to meet the children she fed 17 years ago, now powerful adults who've structured their entire business empire around her moment of kindness. The elevator doors open to reveal a hallway lined with photographs, Morrison Enterprises charitable projects around the world, food banks, school construction, scholarship recipients. Each image shows the global impact of principles learned in a small Ohio diner. At the end of the hall, double oak doors bear a brass nameplate, Executive Conference Room, Thomas Morrison, Chief Executive Officer. Sarah takes a deep breath and knocks. "Come in," calls a familiar voice, deeper now, confident, but still carrying the careful politeness she remembered from that scared 9-year-old. She opens the door to find two men standing by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The older one turns first, and Sarah's breath catches. Tommy Morrison at 26 is tall, well-built, with the same intelligent eyes she remembered, but now those eyes hold the assurance of someone who's conquered the world. "Sarah," he says, and his voice breaks slightly on her name. The second man turns, Jake, now 23, wearing surgical scrubs under an open suit jacket. He's clearly rushed here from the hospital, unwilling to miss this moment. For several seconds, they simply stare at each other. The powerful CEO and renowned surgeon seeing the waitress who changed their lives. The struggling single woman seeing the successful men who never forgot her kindness. Then Tommy steps forward. "I believe we owe you some money for breakfast." He places a check on the conference table. Sarah glances at it and gasps. It's made out for $25.78, the exact cost of their meal in 2006. 17 years of compound interest, Jake adds with a grin. That brings the total to... Tommy gestures toward the windows, toward the building, toward the foundation that bears her name. "Everything you see." Sarah starts crying. Deep, grateful sobs for justice finally served, for kindness finally rewarded, for the impossible made real. "We never stopped believing in the pancake principle," Tommy says gently. "Now we'd like to prove it can feed the world." The three of them stand together in the conference room, looking out over a city full of hungry children waiting for their turn at dignity. The scared boys and struggling waitress are gone, replaced by partners ready to transform compassion into action. The reversal is complete. The helper has become the helped. The giver has become the receiver. And the world is about to discover what happens when kindness gets unlimited resources. The Sarah Mitchell Foundation has fed 127,000 children across 12 states. What started with 2 hungry boys and 2578 has become a humanitarian revolution. Sarah stands in the foundation's main distribution center, watching volunteers pack meal boxes. Former foster children work alongside college students, corporate executives beside retired teachers. Tommy's pancake principle has created an army of compassion. "The ripple effect is extraordinary," Jake tells a news reporter. "Sarah taught us that small acts create massive change. Now we're proving it mathematically." The numbers are staggering. 847 new food pantries, 23,000 college scholarships funded, 156 Morrison kitchens built in underserved communities. Each facility bears the same inscription: "Every person has inherent worth." Tommy approaches Sarah with the day's report. "We've received 12,000 applications from people wanting to start their own foundations using our model." Sarah smiles, remembering 2 thin boys pressed against cold glass. "Then we're just getting started." The waitress who lost her job for feeding hungry children now oversees the largest private anti-hunger initiative in American history. When kindness meets resources, miracles multiply. Hit subscribe and like if this story reminded you that small acts of compassion can literally change the world.